Please welcome your host, Nick Aldinger.
Welcome to Business Builder Insights. I'm your host, Nick Aldinger. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you joining us today. Business Builder Insights is a thought-provoking, six-part speaker series focused on helping business owners and decision makers develop a strategy to scale their companies. Over the course of the next 6 months, we will interview dynamic panelists consisting of successful executives, entrepreneurs, and local subject matter experts, all from Idaho, who will speak on topics directly affecting small and medium-sized businesses. Business Builder Insights is absolutely free. There are no gimmicks or products to buy. We will simply equip you, the Treasure Valley's business owners and key decision makers, with the tools, information, and resources necessary to positively affect your bottom line and help you grow your company. Before we introduce the panels today, I want to also remind you to stick around, because immediately following that first session, we're going to introduce you to Brent Otkin with Profit Creek. He has a segment called Traction. Traction is an informative segment which Brent will break down tools and information that you could use to help your business grow. So be sure to stay tuned, and we'll introduce you to Brent and the Traction segment. I also want to thank our sponsors. Business Builder Insights wouldn't be possible without the help of our sponsors. I want to thank our premier sponsors, BBSI and Profit Creek, our speaker series sponsors, Iliad Media Group and IBL Events, and this month's September session sponsor, Talloo. Thank you, sponsors. And over the course of the next 6 months, if you like the content and the speakers, we invite you to attend our actual in-person event, Business Builder Day, on May 6, 2021 at the Galaxy Event Center. Here, we're going to have keynotes, seminars, and networking with showcasing some of the best companies the Treasure Valley has to offer. This is a free event, so register today at businessbuilder.com. We're going to take a quick commercial break and hear from our sponsor, BBSI, while we bring the panelists up on stage. So thanks again for joining us today for Business Builder Insights. We'll be right back.
You know BBSI for the expertise and support our local business partners provide. Now discover an enhanced level of access and control with MyBBSI, a proprietary online portal that puts the power of information into the hands of you and your team. Streamline your human resources activities with 100% paperless onboarding. Simplify payroll with direct integration of data from TimeNet. Then calculate and process payroll in minutes. Put your data to work for you with powerful reporting tools and discover new insights into your business operations. Discover what MyBBSI can do for your organization. Call or write today to speak with a specialist.
All right, we're back. Thanks again for joining us. This is the Treasure Valley's Economic Outlook for Small and Medium-Sized Business. I'm your host, Nick Aldinger, and I want to thank today's session sponsor, Talloo. Talloo is for the business-minded community, and if you'd like to know more about Talloo, visit app.talloo.com. All right, I want to introduce our featured panelists today, and we're lucky to have here some of the greatest minds when it comes to our economy and the data that's behind it. So first of all, I want to welcome Craig Shaw, Research Analyst Supervisor for the Idaho Department of Labor. Thanks, Craig.
Pleasure to be here.
Robert Spenlove. So he's the Senior Vice President and Economic Public Policy Officer for Zions Bank.
Thanks for having us, Nick.
Yeah, you bet. And Charity Nelson. She's the Director of Economic Development with BVEP, the Boise Valley Economic Partnership.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for being here. So the last 6 months has been crazy. It's been turned upside down with this pandemic, but what we're here to talk about today is how's our Treasure Valley looking from a small and medium-sized business standpoint, especially as we go into 2021. And I know we have a lot of data to go over today. We have a lot of good content provided by your teams, but just right out of the gate, I would like to start with you, Robert, is what do we have to look forward to as we go into 2021 for our local economy?
Yeah, so like you said, what we've seen over the past 6 months has really been unprecedented. This is really kind of the example of a black swan. If you kind of think about that, it is something that was totally unexpected. There was no way to anticipate it, and the impact has been drastic. So there is a high level of uncertainty still, both nationally and locally. But one of the great things is Idaho has really emerged as one of the best economies in the country in this period. So as we're recovering, Idaho is leading the country.
Well, that's great news. And, also, I think before we get started, because we have a lot of data, again, to get through, I think it's probably important for our audience to maybe define what constitutes a small and medium-sized business. So, Craig, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Well, it's if you look at the SBA, they have a pretty in-depth methodology to figure out what a small business means. They take a view of what a normal-sized business for an industry is, what the receipts are. At the Idaho Department of Labor, we kind of take more of a simplistic view. We just look at the number of employees per employer and kind of make we don't necessarily have a firm definition of what makes a small business, but if you look at employers that have 100 or less, that actually composes quite a large number of Idaho. In fact, when we start getting into the data and the industry, it's important to note that Idaho actually has a higher concentration of its employment in smaller sized businesses than nationwide. SBA definition, which you kindly surfaced their research on that, it's 99.2% of Idaho businesses are considered small business by their definition. From us, it's a similar ratio, but what's also important to note is that Idaho has actually had it's in terms of the concentration of employee in small businesses actually been increasing over the past few years compared to national. National tends to be higher concentration in 1,000 plus.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, and I think we have a slide that we're looking at right now. So if I heard you right, the SBA's Office of Advocacy publishes this report, and roughly there's 163,000 small businesses, and that makes up 99.2% of all businesses here in Idaho. Is that correct?
Correct. By their methodology, yes.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that's a huge number. But maybe I'm going to ask you, Charity. We had a conversation prior to this. How does that rank with other states? In terms of their size of small, medium-sized businesses?
Yeah, it's incredibly high, as you'd expect. We laugh sometimes that we get requests from consultants or companies that are looking across multiple states, and they say, now, tell me about your small to medium-sized businesses. And we can say, well, that's almost all of them. So, when you talk about the small and medium-sized businesses being, the heart of your communities, it's even more significant in our community where most of our businesses are in that category. So that category is so important for our economy.
And, and we're going to get into some growth, but is this sustainable for Idaho in terms to have this high percentage of small, medium-sized business? And is it healthy? Go ahead.
I'll tell you, I think it's actually the secret sauce of Idaho. What's unique about our state is these small, medium-sized businesses. They're dynamic. They can move quickly. They can change quickly, compared to states that like you think about in Massachusetts, which is kind of the opposite. They're mostly larger businesses. It takes them a lot longer to move. It's the difference between trying to move an aircraft carrier versus a speedboat. Idaho's like a speedboat, and we're dynamic and quick moving. So I think this small businesses is a huge benefit to the economy.
Well, and then being 99.2%, I mean, it's more than just a heartbeat. It's the whole body per se of Idaho and how our economy is made up. So let's look at some recent data that the Idaho Department of Labor published here. Is what's really happened in the last year. And what we're looking at here, I think, Craig, we'll have you explain it to us, is the gains and losses by industry. And so if you could explain who's been hit the hardest and where we're at right now today.
Sure. Well, like Robert was saying, this has been a black swan event for the past few months. The pandemic has really kind of affected businesses that relied upon a social interaction more than most other industries. And so you see the largest hits that hit our economy in leisure, hospitality, other services, retail a little bit. But really it's those ones that required some sort of interaction. The most recent data we released was August, and so we rebounded quite a bit from our declines in April. In fact, we increased by about 5,000 jobs from July to August, which put our deficit over last year at 0.7%, which is the smallest deficit that any state in the union has right now in terms of the job impact of the coronavirus recession or economic impact. We still see that those industries that are affected most by the social distancing, still the ones that are still trying to make up. We see education and health services, leisure and hospitality, other services still well below where they were last year, but those numbers are improving. What's interesting is we've seen financial activities, manufacturing, and construction have all, and even natural resources, even though it makes up a small number of our employment, they've all done really well in the last few months. Even I think financial activities, every sector except natural resources took a hit in April, but since then, financial activities, manufacturing, construction have been the strongest.
And I think it's obvious we know leisure and hospitality, makes sense. It's been hit the hardest. Can you quickly just tell us 9% for information? Can you tell us what really makes up information?
So information is kind of a funny industry. A lot of people associate that with software development and kind of the tech industry. However, information actually deals with media, multimedia broadcasting, newspapers, those types of things. ISPs are in there, but as a subset, they actually have been growing, at least prior to the pandemic, and I'm sure they're still doing okay. But we see actually movie theaters are also in information, so I know they've been kind of hit hard by the social distancing and some of those regulations as well.
And for some of these industries that might have been hit hardest, do we see them, specifically here in the Treasure Valley in Idaho, do we see them rebounding a little bit as we head into 2021?
That's a big question. It's really the trick for the people in our business is trying to figure out where we're going to be in the next 6 months or 2 years. And really the uncertainty that's out there has kind of made it difficult to even kind of tell us where we're going to be in the next 3 months. It looks like things have kind of reached a good spot for Idaho. We're the best. We've been the least impacted state in the nation in terms of the effects of the shutdown, but we've recovered quite a bit from that. And so, but going forward, it's a little hard to say in terms of, there's still some uncertainty out there in terms of until once basically the pandemic, the coronavirus is resolved. I think we're going to be kind of in this state of not sure exactly how things are going to pan out. But it looks like things, Idaho is leading the way on that at the moment.
Okay. And Robert, how about in terms of some of these businesses that have been thriving? Do we see that to continue as well as we move into 2021?
Yeah, I think absolutely. What we're seeing is kind of a change of the nature of how the economy works, how we interact, and some of those are temporary. We won't. A lot of us aren't going into the office as much as we were. A lot of us aren't interacting directly as much as we were, but. I think we've also seen kind of a technological revolution. We had video conferencing before the pandemic, but no one used it. And now everyone knows how to log onto Zoom or onto Teams or whatever you're using. And so it's going to cause some of those longer term changes. And I think we're going to see that in some of our industry makeup breakdowns as well. Another point I wanted to make also is, as tough as it is in some of these industries, and it is tough, especially, the leisure and hospitality, relative to the rest of the nation, again, Idaho is doing so much better. The leisure and hospitality sector nationally is still down double digits. It's down significantly. And Idaho has been very resilient to some of those national trends. And then the other one that I think is really remarkable is manufacturing is expanding. Even in this really tough situation, manufacturing in Idaho is expanding. And a lot of that is that tech sector, which is kind of unique again to Idaho because we've got a lot of tech manufacturers. And that really is, kind of one of our main economic drivers. So if manufacturing is doing well, the rest of the economy will be doing well too.
So is it safe to say that as we come and bounce back from this pandemic, that Idaho is very well positioned to maybe even thrive more than the other states as they start to catch up?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would agree with that. Yeah, the population increases have continued unabated. If anything, it's actually increased the flow of population to Idaho. That, in 2019, we were the fastest growing nation, 2.1%. I'm going to guess that 2020 is going to be, if not the same rate, a little higher.
Well, that's great. So let's actually dive into some of those numbers a little bit more. Obviously, we'll start with the labor market. We have so much data, we could probably eat up 2 hours of our time today. So we're going to go through some of this data fairly fast. But let's take a look. And I think this is hot off the press from the U.S. Census Bureau and the Idaho Department of Labor. But you just mentioned it earlier. The Idaho job loss is lowest in the nation based on the August reports. So Idaho's coming in at negative 0.7, which not even a 1%. We're almost in the positive. And we could see by this map that almost across the nation, states are struggling to get back from those job losses. So good news from Idaho from this report. We look at unemployment. We're the third lowest in the nation, coming in at 4.2, which you just mentioned. We're only trail Nebraska and Utah from an unemployment. So more good news from an Idaho standpoint. And then we look at our Treasure Valley, our county, with unemployment. And again, Ada County and Canyon County are sitting really, they were doing a really good job relative to where we were just a few months ago with unemployment. So Ada County coming in at 4.2% and Canyon County at 4.6%. Just like you said, this is surprising, honestly, compared to where we were just a few months ago and what we're seeing across the nation. So I want to bring up, though, we're still seeing from, again, the U.S. Census Bureau, this Pulse Business Survey that just came out from the last 2 months, maybe a disconnect with the data that's coming out versus Idaho small businesses. And what we're seeing here is businesses that are hiring, they're saying, we're not hiring, we're pulling back. And even possibly downsizing, we're seeing a trend where there's even possible talk about downsizing the percentages from these small businesses. Can you allude, is there a disconnect between actual business owners versus the data that's coming out?
Well, that's there seems to be. Actually, I don't think there's a disconnect per se. It's just that one data set kind of lags the other. So we're talking about unemployment in August, and we're in September. And the graph you have up here is up through August, but I'm sure I think there's an update for it and for September's data. But it really just shows that through the summer, employers seem to be somewhat optimistic, and they were hiring as the shutdowns were kind of ending, and they were bringing back workforce for the summer activity for hotels or restaurants, what have you. But going on, there seems to be some headwinds in the economy that I think employers are probably being somewhat conservative about in terms of one of the things that's got us to this point has been the stimulus packages from the federal government. And since those have kind of gone by the wayside, I think employers are taking a conservative approach to seeing what's going to happen in the next few months. Just like kind of what I was saying, it's just it's a little hard to understand what's going to happen in this third, fourth quarter. We have Christmas season coming, you have what would be normally robust retail hiring, robust retail sales, those types of things. Those may still be high, but it looks like it's going to be more of an online type of presence. Or social distance type of shopping. I know there's several major retailers that have already kind of said they're not going to do Black Friday. So, these are the types of things that I think employers are just trying to plan around, and so I think that's what this kind of indicates.
And Charity, I'm going to pass it over to you really quick. You deal with a lot with corporations. What's the the feeling out there with regards to the Idaho economy and how we're structured currently and where we're headed?
Yeah, I'd say it's really positive, and I completely agree. I think right now there's uncertainty, and so we're definitely hearing businesses that are saying, maybe we're going to hold on this a little bit. I'm not going to open up all those jobs right now because I need to see what happens. There's still certainly a lot of uncertainty, but overall, when companies are looking at the Treasure Valley and Idaho as a whole as a place to do business, it looks even more favorable now than it did before the pandemic. I mean, there's a lot of data that's showing us that companies are even less likely to locate in the big urban metros. This has been the case for quite a while. There's been this move to kind of the smaller metropolitan areas, places where they feel like there's maybe more quality of life for their employees and some costs are a little bit lower. This has accelerated that. So as you look at businesses expanding, Idaho is going to continue to be an incredibly positive place for them to consider.
And that's a great segment into, let's talk about migration. I don't think anyone's surprised when we talk about people relocating to Idaho. But let's talk about it first from people moving in, and then let's talk about it from a business standpoint and how it affects our business. So again, we'll look at the data again. So if we look at who's coming into Idaho and who's not, Idaho, no surprise here, is the fastest growing in the U.S. And again, it's not even close. So Idaho's coming in at 2.1%, and this was before the pandemic. So this is through 2019. But an interesting note here is the population growth from a U.S. standpoint is at 0.5% nationally, and Idaho's coming in at 2.1%. Again, no surprise. I think we see it every day. We're seeing another business building coming up, apartment complexes, housing. No surprise. And then we just want to take a quick look at, from the Treasure Valley's perspective, strong growth, again, from Canyon and Ada County, 2.7% growth, and Canyon County at 3%. But Idaho's seeing an influx from a population standpoint. Is this trend going to continue? Robert, you're in this data all the time. Will this explosion of growth continue?
Yeah, in fact, I think it may even accelerate. I'm thinking back to that unemployment map that you showed, and if you look at it, while Idaho and Utah had low unemployment, Nevada and California have very high unemployment. They're still really struggling. They are those larger metropolitan areas, because most of Nevada's population is in Vegas, and then in California you have all the big coastal cities, and people are really struggling in those conditions, and they're experiencing much more economic struggle, much higher unemployment, and they're looking for kind of places with a higher quality of life, and they look to Boise, and they look to the entire state, and they say there's a great quality of life, easy access to amenities, and relatively lower property values or home prices, and so they're flooding into the state. And I think as we continue to see some of those coastal and more expensive areas struggle, you're going to see even more population growth and in-migration into the state.
And I think, Charity, your team provided some data that was painted that same picture, what Robert was just talking about. And again, this is before the pandemic, but we're looking at a slide right here that's really showcasing the disparity between what's happening at a U.S. level and these other metro areas in regards to population growth. But here we see in the last 10 years, the U.S. growth rate was at about 6.3%. But here, the Boise Metro, the Treasure Valley's at 21.5%. And we just talked about it. We said it's alarming, but I think there's some data here, and you put an article in here from the Business Insider. Can you talk about what's going on from this population standpoint?
Yeah, so I think all of us are looking at this data all the time, and we're seeing this trend continue and even accelerate. So we don't see that slowing down. But this article from the Business Insider was actually based off some information that they've pulled since the pandemic, and it shows that 194% more people have moved into Idaho than have moved out since the pandemic. Now, we expect some of that is short-term, kids moving home from college to be with their parents while they're doing virtual school, things like that, but every state's experiencing that. So this will be interesting to see how this plays out. But what we hear is, I had been thinking of moving to Idaho or to Boise, and now I'm going tomorrow instead of 3 years from now when I was considering it. So I don't see this slowing down. And I do think it's interesting, we're all feeling this and seeing it, but there have actually been periods of time in the metro previously where we've experienced greater percentages of growth year over year. So we had a boom in the 90s, we had another one in the early 2000s. So this is a lot, but it's not that we've never done it before. So I think there's a lot of positive to take from this.
And let me ask you another question, because you talk a lot about talent, right? How does this affect talent from a business standpoint? When we talk about the small, medium-sized businesses, we're sitting here at 99% of the businesses make up our economy. But how does this impact when we have this, influx of population? How does that affect talent in regards to our state?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's really important. If you dig deeper into this data, what you find is that the vast majority of these people that are moving into the area are your workforce. So there's a misperception that it's only retirees that are moving in. It's not what the data we've seen shows. Retirees are moving in, but it's not 90% of the people that are coming in. So really a large proportion of the people coming into the area are, that 25 to 55, that prime workforce. So when you're a small business or a business of any size and you're hiring, more people coming into the area means that you've got a greater pool of talent to look at and pool from. What this also indicates is this is a place people want to go. So if you do have to recruit from outside the state, your chances of finding people who are willing to move here are very good.
And Robert, let me ask you, is our infrastructure, do we have the infrastructure to support not only this growth, but our businesses to be vibrant for years to come? Do we have the right infrastructure in place?
Yeah, and I'll tell you that's one of the struggles. That overall, I am pro-growth. And, I think growth is always good for an area. I'd much rather be Boise than Detroit. But it is a struggle. And we've got to be focusing on making sure we have the infrastructure to handle the kind of growth that we're seeing and the kind of growth we will be seeing. And so we've got to be looking, 10, 20, 30 years out into the future and saying we need to be preparing now for what's going to be happening, because what we don't want to have happen, we don't want to have all of a sudden there's so much growth and it's unplanned, we start to get gridlock or we start to get failures or brownouts like they're having in parts of California. It's so important for us to be planning ahead. Right now I think we're in a good spot, but we've got to be kind of looking forward and anticipating what's going to be happening.
And Craig, I'll ask you and then we'll move on, but from a labor standpoint, do we have the skilled workforce to support this growth, and do we have the companies to support this population influx?
Well, I think the population influx, yes. And just looking at the year, before the pandemic hit, Idaho had been under 3% unemployment for over 2 solid years, under 4% for 4 solid years. And looking at these numbers each month, somehow we just kept getting the population to keep that number down. It just seemed like whatever the state took in terms of labor force and population, it was employing. So I'm going to guess that actually there's probably more of a supply. There's more of a demand than the supply is providing, obviously, by the 4.2%. But in terms of skills, that's always been a challenge. That's something that Idaho's been working on for a long time. Higher Education, Workforce Development Council, they've all been doing a really good job in trying to connect the supply of students and the proper training to the employers. But given the number of just the level of interest, it's kind of it takes a while to bring those things online. You're always kind of chasing after a ball. So a lot of I think what Charity's challenges and what the state is bringing in that talented workforce. It's just, the 2.1% population increase, if it hadn't been for in-migration, Idaho's Idaho's population would have matched the nation's increase. It would have been 0.5%. So it's kind of part and parcel in a way, but that's what's kind of changing the state and kind of raising all boats, hopefully, with that.
Okay. And then we have to ask, we don't want to spend too much time, but what we're going to look at here is the impact to home value prices. And we're seeing a trend here where what the slide is showing, just to set the stage, is we're looking at the Idaho Home Value Index, which is the blue line, versus the green line, which represents the U.S. Home Value Index. And you could see in times of recessions that these two mirrored each other fairly closely. And even before the Great Recession, they weren't too far apart. But what we're seeing as we go into 2020, these two lines are going further and further apart. And I just have to ask, and I'm going to ask you, Robert, are we in for maybe a potential bubble burst when it comes to this housing market again? And is this something we need to be worried about for the business community?
Yeah, and it's something I've been concerned about for a while. I mean, you see that how Idaho is just taking off compared to the nation, and I keep asking my builder friends that very question. I'm like, is this real? And they swear that it's real. They swear that it's because of increased demand. It's because of increased immigration. And so, so there is definitely a story behind the change. But there was also a story behind the change in 2006 and 2007. And, what I get concerned about is when that housing price appreciation is quicker than the ability of people's wages to keep up with that appreciation. And if that gap gets too large, eventually it's going to come down. Now, that doesn't mean that the housing construction will drop, but maybe that appreciation is a little bit too high. Only time will tell, and we're in strange times right now, but it does give me a little bit of caution. The other thing that makes me a little nervous is, we keep talking about the different shapes of the recovery. Will it be V-shaped or U-shaped or W-shaped? There's starting to be kind of a discussion of a K-shaped, where those that are doing well financially are doing great. Those that are not doing well financially are really struggling. And you think about housing prices, and housing is becoming less and less affordable to those people just starting out their career or low income. And that's another one of the kind of the policy areas we've got to start talking about very seriously, is how do we promote and provide affordable housing to these people moving in. Okay,
great insight, and I think it's something we need to keep an eye on, especially for the business community. And then I want to talk about, we talked about population, the influx from a people standpoint, but Charity, what about from a corporation standpoint? So there's this interesting article that you provided from the Site Selectors Guild members, and can you explain what's happening from this business community? It's not just people that are wanting to move here, it's corporations. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And we've been seeing this. You can see here that our organization, we've seen an increase of about 60% more companies that are working with us to evaluate the Boise Metro as a place to move. A 60% increase from this time last year. So this is through the pandemic. We are busier than we have been in the past, and we had our best year ever last year. So this is not a small increase that we're seeing here. And the Site Selectors Guilds found the same thing, that there has still been a lot of companies that are looking to expand, and one of the primary places they're looking is the Boise Metro. And it's the same idea that maybe they don't want to expand in the middle of New York City, because there's a lot of impact right now, and they're thinking maybe a second-tier city that's a little smaller, not so densely populated, maybe that's a good place for business. Again, we've been seeing that trend. It seems like it's being accelerated by the pandemic. And when we talk about these companies, this is anywhere from a 50-person manufacturing company to a huge Fortune 500. So, this is kind of across that scope of different sized companies.
And with telemarketing as well, or not telemarketing, but being able to work from home, is this something that is also maybe affecting this, where maybe they're not moving the location, but maybe their workforce is coming to Idaho and working from home, that now that they have the ability? Is that something that's happening?
It is, and we actually just saw some great data put out by the Manpower Group that shows that companies that are located maybe in Seattle or the Bay Area are actually thinking more about, I could pull talent that sits in Boise today because they can sit in Boise and still be employed there. We know that already happens. It's been happening. We've got a lot. We probably all know people who live here in Boise but work for a Bay Area company. We think that may expand, and so it might be interesting to see if some of those companies from big cities start to recruit out of our talent pool here more actively than they have in the past, because those people would not need to move potentially. So I think we're just starting to see bits of that. We'll have to see what happens, and if people do continue to allow their workers to be anywhere. So I think that's another, let's see what happens as we move into 2021 and beyond.
Okay, great. And we have just a few minutes left, and I kind of want, it's amazing how fast time flies, especially when we're looking at data. But I want to get each of your opinion on, as we're moving forward here to 2021, if I'm a small and medium-sized business owner, what is the outlook for me being here in the Treasure Valley? What's maybe some of the good and maybe what's some of the bad, but your closing statements that if someone's listening today, what do they have to look forward to? As we've probably went through some of the worst times of our lives during the past 6 months, but what do we have to look forward to? Because the data suggests we're in a prime position. But from your own words, what do we have to look forward to as we're moving into 2021?
Once the pandemic, there's a vaccine, I think we're in a good position for capitalizing on the changes and the conditions of the economy now. So assuming we can kind of maintain this pace and maintain a status quo, I think Idaho will be Boise will be in a great position going forward. In fact, I think it's kind of interesting that when I look at the data, I look at the unemployment data and the labor force data, looking at April, seeing it 11.8%, and then we're back down to 4.2%. And it's just kind of, it's hard to wrap my mind around the sheer enormity of those changes. But we're back down into a tight labor force situation already, and we're still not out of the pandemic. So it's something that I think is encouraging for the state.
It truly is amazing. If you look back right after the pandemic and look where our unemployment numbers were, it was honestly scary. And to think now with the reports that are just coming out and we're already almost back down, truly remarkable from our state's perspective. A success story in my mind. Robert, how about you?
So if I were to pick 2 words to describe where we are or going into 2021, it would be uncertainty, but also opportunity. And we will continue to have this uncertainty. Craig and I were just talking about this earlier. I mean, no one really knows what's going to happen over the next 3 to 6 to 12 months. I mean, we hope we'll have a good vaccine. We hope we'll have a treatment. We hope that the economy will continue to recover. But we don't really know. And, no one knows. Anyone that tells you they know doesn't know what they're talking about. However, it's not our first recession. We have recessions all the time. It's the worst that we've had in our lifetimes, but we have these all the time, and there are always companies that benefit from these kind of situations. So it's an opportunity for those businesses that can identify these changing trends and capitalize on them and benefit from them. So there really is a lot of opportunity. Again, you kind of go back to Zoom. Whoever thought that Zoom would be, one of the best stocks in the stock market? But there's opportunities like that all over. And my recommendation to these entrepreneurs is find those opportunities and benefit from them.
Great. And Charity, we'll end with you.
Yeah, I'll take it back to talent. I think one of the most critical things for any business, regardless of the size, is quality talent. With the in-migration that we're seeing here, we have a great opportunity to continue to attract really great talent into the Valley. So that's always a good thing for business. If you have access to more talent, you have the ability to hire and get the people that you need. I do think that we need to continue to be mindful of more employers in the market means that there is more competition. And it means that as an employer, you do need to be reevaluating what you offer employees, make sure that you can continue to stay competitive and that you have good offerings. And those change. We're actually seeing right now with the pandemic, companies are starting to evaluate, perhaps there's a return to work bonus. If I'm going to ask you to come back into the workplace, maybe that is worth a little bit more compensation, and companies are starting to offer that. Companies are thinking more about childcare benefits because We already had some issues with childcare. There's not enough available, and the pandemic has accelerated that. So I think it's time to be even more creative with the things that you're offering your employees. Make sure that you can get the talent that you need and then retain them by the programs that you offer.
Yeah, great insight. Well, first of all, I wish we did have more time because there's a lot of data that you guys provide and it's very informative. But I want to thank you for being here today. You truly are remarkable when it comes to our economy and the data that's behind it. But what I appreciate the most is you're able to put it in front of us and it makes sense, right? And so I know there's a lot of work behind the scenes with the data to make it presentable for the general public. But I appreciate you being here today. A very informative session. And it looks like we have a bright outlook for Idaho. But thanks again for being here today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, well, we'll be right back after a brief message, and I definitely want to stick around for the next segment with Brent Otkin with Profit Creek. He's going to be hosting a segment called The Traction. So The Traction is where we're going to break down some tools and information that you could use in your business on an everyday basis. So stick around. We'll be right back after these messages. Thank you.
So, you're a business owner, or the marketing director, or the PR guy, maybe even lead of sales. Problem is, you're likely all of these things and need Iliad Media Group to help you be heard and found. Get back to business as usual. You probably think you can handle all of the demanding marketing requirements to succeed in today's business world, telling yourself, it's fine if I miss some things. I can do it myself. I don't need help. My cousin's a graphic designer. Realistically, there's just way too much to do for one person. You need a team that can help get you found online, place your marketing in front of the right demographic, have your message heard by real people, be transparent about insights and reporting, craft a clear story for your brand, help grow your bottom line, and advise you as marketing specialists who have your best interest in mind. Whew, I think you know where I'm going with this. Introducing Iliad Media Group. We do the unusual so you can get back to business as usual.
You know BBSI for the expertise and support our local business partners provide. Now discover an enhanced level of access and control with My BBSI, a proprietary online portal that puts the power of information into the hands of you and your team. Streamline your human resources activities with 100% paperless onboarding. Simplify payroll with direct integration of data from TimeNet. Then calculate and process payroll in minutes. Put your data to work for you with powerful reporting tools and discover new insights into your business operations. Discover what My BBSI can do for your organization. Call or write today to speak with a specialist.
All right, welcome back to Business Builder Insights. I'm your host, Nick Aldinger. I'm really excited about this next segment. On stage with me is Brent Otkin, owner of Profit Creek. And Brent, you're going to be leading a series for the next 6 months with us called Traction.
Correct.
Yeah, so first of all, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about this segment you're going to be leading and what we could expect as we move into the next few months?
You bet. Yeah, it's really intended to kind of take some of the concepts that we're going to hear about in the first segment and then bring that down to the ground that we can actually implement into our businesses. Oftentimes we listen to content, it's great content, but then it's so difficult to actually take it back and execute on it. So I want to really help our small to medium-sized business owners have some real practical tools and advice that they can implement and see some good results from.
Great. So in this segment, you might be interviewing business owners. You'll be talking about tools and actually stuff business owners could use and implement today, correct?
Correct, yeah. In the work that I do with business owners, it's interesting to see some of the common themes that come out. And so part of how we've structured this is to help them kind of address some of those common questions and challenges that they face. And so in this segment, I want to bring in either some leaders that have done well at that and kind of have them highlight some of the things that they've been able to do in their business, or share some of the tools that I use in my practice as I work with business owners to really help them get the traction in their business that they're looking for.
Well, and let's dig into that a little bit more. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, Profit Creek.
Yeah, so what I do is I'm a professional EOS implementer, which simply means that I work with business owners and leadership teams to help them really implement a proven system with very simple tools that helps them with three things that we call vision, traction, and healthy. So vision from the standpoint of getting 100% on the same page with their leadership team of where they're wanting to go with the organization and what they're trying to accomplish, how they're going to get there. Traction is that accountability and discipline to execute on all aspects of that vision. Oftentimes we struggle with actually accomplishing the vision that we have set out. And then healthy is simply helping the leadership team be a very cohesive, functional team that works really well together. Because oftentimes leaders at that level tend not to play well together. So we want that team to be very functional and work well together. And really from there, as the leadership team goes, so goes the rest of the organization. So we just get the whole company to the point where they know what we're trying to accomplish, they're on board with that, they share that vision, they're gaining consistent traction toward that vision, and really just the business just runs a whole lot better, it's a lot more profitable, and the employee retention goes up, and you're retaining the employees you want. And so it just makes for a much better business experience. So that's what I do is I work with business owners to help them achieve that.
And so you're going to be taking some of these tools and you're going to be guiding our audience through how to implement that into their work environment.
Correct.
Right away.
Yeah, we'll share some tools that they can use. Obviously, a full implementation is much more involved, but there are several things that people can do right away that can really make a big difference in their business. And what we like to say is get a grip on their business. And you have some success stories, right? You have local business owners that have walked through and used these tools and been able to see immediate results, right? Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's really amazing to watch, even regardless of industry, how these tools can make such a difference. And really, what this is all about is the running of a business aspect. It's not consulting. It's not talking about how to build widgets or provide a service or that type of thing. It's more of the operating of a business, and that's the thing that so many of our entrepreneurs struggle with. Is we don't really do a good job of teaching people how to run a business. They have a product or service and they build a business kind of around that, and it scales out and it grows, but it can be very difficult and very awkward. And so what I do is come in and help them with that system to help them operate better and just make it run more smoothly and basically get what they thought they were getting when they got into business.
Well, and it seems like these are like practical tools, right? So why aren't more business owners implementing these type of tools that just work?
Yeah, the tools that we use in the entrepreneurial operating system have been around for 100 years, and they'll be around 100 more. There's nothing magical about that. The problem is as business owners, we're so inundated with all the activities that happen, all the issues, all the challenges, all the problems we're faced with. And so we can get kind of focused on that as opposed to on the important things. And so having somebody like me come in and help them implement these systems and then hold them accountable to what they really want to accomplish makes a huge difference. And that's why, like you were saying earlier, how these companies have really seen great success is simply just having somebody to walk with them. So seldom do they have anybody to walk with them on this journey.
And so, Brent, we're going to be walking through this journey with you for the next 6 months on this segment, and you're going to be breaking down. Why do you do this? What's your passion?
That's great. This has been kind of a labor of love when coronavirus hit, just thinking, how can we help the business community? We all need to kind of come together. And we just experienced the anniversary of 9/11, and I remember 9/12 when we just came together as Americans and we helped each other. It's kind of that same feeling with coronavirus of how do we just circle around and help each other with our business and get our economy strong again. And so I just have a passion for small business. I really feel like it is so important to the fabric of our communities, to our families even. For example, if I go to work and I hate what I do, or I hate my boss, or my boss hates me, when I go home, I'm exhausted. I'm probably not the best spouse I could be. I'm probably not the best parent I could be. But man, what if I go to work and I love what I do? I get to use my creative energy. I come home, I'm energized. It makes me a better version of myself. Plus, I'm compensated appropriately. I have more resources. Just everything works better. And so I really think helping our businesses get stronger really helps our society. And obviously, if you watch the news, our society needs some help right now. So.
And with your segment, Traction, There's, again, nothing, you're not selling anything, there's nothing to buy. This is purely information that you know works.
Correct.
And helps the small and medium-sized business community.
Correct. That's why we wanted to partner on this and really provide this valuable content, because it's so important to our business community and to get the word out there. So few these tools are out there. It's so difficult to be aware of all the different things that are available. Like the expert panel that we just had on, it was excellent. And if I'm a business owner in my day-to-day, how do I get that kind of content? So it's great to be able to bring that kind of content, other topics, in a concentrated effort and way to let these business owners experience that, get that knowledge, and be able to implement it into their business.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so our next segment's coming up October 22nd.
Yep.
Can you give a sneak peek about what you will be talking about in your segment coming up in October?
Yeah, it's going to be a great segment. We're going to be highlighting leadership and really the what you need to build that sustainable company and to lead your company, especially in these times. Couple of key things that we're going to be talking about in the traction segment is the one common denominator of all great leaders, and then I'll also be sharing the 10 commandments of good decision making. So it'll be a good segment. And in addition, there's a bonus ebook that we're gonna make available to everybody that registers. So even if you can't attend, make sure to register so you can at least get a copy of the ebook.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So we're going to look forward to your segment. I know there's going to be a lot of valuable insights working with you in the past, plethora of information for our audience that they're going to be able to use right away, right out of the gate.
Exactly.
So we appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to your segment, Traction. So be sure to tune in October 22nd to hear more from Brent Otkin with Profit Creek. So thanks for being here today, Brent.
You bet.
Again, we're looking forward to your segment. And speaking of that, coming up in October, we have our next session for Business Builder Insights. We have a leadership case study, Proven Methods for a Sustainable Company. Our panelists, it's another great panelist. We have Amy Guile, who's co-founder and CEO of Silver Draft Supercomputing. We have Dan Puga, president of InTime Tech. And we will have Tressa McLaughlin, CEO of Solve. So be sure to tune in next month for Business Builder Insights on October 22nd at 10 a.m. We thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you again next month. Once again, this is Business Builder Insights, and I'm Nick Aldinger. Have a great day.
If you're looking to grow your bottom line, join us to gain resources on growth strategies, social media, fraud protection, workplace culture, hiring, and more. Register to attend Business Builder Day, a free event for business professionals, May 6th at the Galaxy Event Center.